Good day, friends. Welcome to Our Power is Within podcast. I'm your host, Chaz Smith, and my mission for this podcast is to inspire you to take your power back and to realize that you are the healer that you've been looking for all along. Let's heal together in mind, body, and soul. So if you read the title, then you might already know that this week's episode is all about gratitude. So then it would make sense to stick with that theme for our weekly challenge. So, can we begin and end each day with a grateful heart? And maybe even somewhere in between. Here's the thing. Gratitude really is magic sauce. And listen, I know firsthand that it's easier said than done sometimes in certain moments. But every time I have ever decided to shift into a gratitude, I've never regretted it. They say we get more of and create more of what we focus on. So I know I would rather focus on what's good and be grateful. And listen, as you will hear throughout this episode, choosing to be grateful is not about toxic positivity or denying our real feelings. Quite opposite. It's actually about choosing to be grateful in spite of everything else. It doesn't mean we can't still feel sad sometimes, but we can also shift into gratitude and remember all that we have to be grateful for. So, will you be grateful with me this week? And hopefully every week after that? Maybe for a moment, you can hit the pause button and you can feel your feet on the ground and take a nice deep breath. And think of one thing that you are so grateful for in this moment and speak it out loud to yourself. And then take another deep breath. And then when you're done with that, hit on pause so that you can hear the rest of this awesome episode with our awesome guest, the gratitude addict, Miss Lauren Zaleski herself. Lauren is the creator of a very large and interactive Facebook group that is all about gratitude. Lauren has written books to support gratitude habits, and she has personally witnessed the magic of gratitude in her life and those around her. And she shares so much of her wonderful insights into the world of gratitude with us today. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Lauren, thank you so much for being here with me today and everybody who will be tuned in listening.
Thank you for having me, Chaz. It's an honor to be on your wonderful podcast, and I'm happy to be here.
Yay! I am happy to have you here. For today's topic, so everyone knows, we are going to be talking all about gratitude, which is a passion of Lauren's, and I've come to know her as the gratitude lady.
Yes, the gratitude addict. That is my website, gratitudeaddict.com.
Yep. And yeah, so I'm super excited to have you kind of just share with us how you got to where you are today and how this became your passion, that you are so immersed in this concept and idea of gratitude. And so maybe we could just start with you sharing your story and what led you to where you are now.
Sure. Well, like everybody else that lives with some kind of a chronic condition, I have a story. I think everybody does. And, one moment life is, status quo. And then, within a moment, things change with a diagnosis or an injury. And all of a sudden life has, dramatically shifted. And that shift happened for me when I was in my early 30s. It's been over 20 years. Got sick in 2001. I was a young mom with 2 toddlers at the time. And I got sick and it felt like I had the flu, but the flu just kept on going. And, then I live in a rural area of New Jersey and they thought it was Lyme disease because it's very prevalent where I am. And the symptoms were similar because they all kind of mimic each other. even though I tested negative, they treated me for Lyme. I knew it wasn't Lyme. And so it took about a year to get a real diagnosis. And so I was diagnosed with both lupus and fibromyalgia. And, since then, over the past 20 years, I've got all sorts of tentacle, uh, ailments that go along with those things like Sjogren's and some of those other things. But basically, one of them is an autoimmune disease, and they cause chronic pain. And so over the past 20 years, for the first 10 years or so, I would go through flares where, I was kind of laid up on the couch and unable to do much. But then I would get out of those flares and be able to kind of function normally. But that didn't last. In about 2009, I hit a really bad flare that just didn't go away. And so I went from sort of being like a real social butterfly person, kind of like overachiever mom, super mom, PTA president, homeroom mom, that type of thing, to someone who really retreated. And I don't want to say I let my illness get the better of me, but in certain ways I did, because I would try to, like many that live with chronic pain and illness, I tried everything. I tried different treatments. I tried different specialists, doctors, jumped from doctor to doctor, medication to medication. And, certain things would work, but then other things didn't. And I was finding that with each thing that didn't work, I would get my hopes up. And then when it didn't work, I would just go into a bit of a darker place with each one. And so eventually I really went to a dark place. And chronic pain and depression, I forget the statistics, but it's somewhere around 90 something % of people that live with chronic pain also have depression. They often go hand in hand. And eventually I developed a very severe alcohol problem in 2012. It only lasted a year, but it was bad. And I was using it to self-medicate from the physical pain, but also the emotional pain, Chaz, because I really just, I when you get diagnosed with something, or, when life's plot twists happen, the doctor will give you a prescription or a treatment or whatever, but they don't tell you how to deal with the emotional pain aspect of it. They don't tell you, you're left to kind of figure it out on your own. And I feel like I was thrown into the deep end head first without ever having had a swimming lesson, because you don't expect to ever be there. So I was left to figure it out on my own, and I didn't know the benefits of talking to other people. I didn't know the benefits of, I couldn't get outside of my pain. My pain, I was one with my pain, and I really kind of let it embody me. And then the drinking just poured on top of that, was like pouring alcohol onto a fire. And so in June 20th, 2013, I hit a rock bottom, and I woke up in a hospital bed having no idea how I'd gotten there. And my parents and my husband were there, and they told me that I had driven and got a DUI. I crashed into a parked box truck. Thankfully, nobody was injured, and obviously I'm still alive to tell the story. But, I was arguing with them, saying I didn't even go anywhere. I do not remember to this day. I do not remember going out, which just tells you how severe my alcohol problem was. And so I was fortunate enough to go from there to a chronic pain rehab, which unfortunately no longer exists, up in Connecticut, Silver Hill Hospital. So I was in a 30-day inpatient program where I got sober, and next month I'll be sober for 9 years. I'm very happy about that. But it was also a program that really helped people to deal with the emotional aspects of living with chronic pain and illness. How do you get outside of yourself? How do you live a fulfilling, joyful life despite your condition? And one of the things we worked on was gratitude, which I thought sounded ridiculous at the time. Like, I'm sick. What do I have to be grateful for? And there's just so much more to it, which, maybe we can get into. But so we worked on gratitude and mindfulness, focusing on things that don't hurt versus ruminating over things that do hurt, and choosing to pivot from your situation into a joyful life, because I was finding that the more I was trying to control things, the more out of control I was. And I was just slipping deeper and deeper into this dark place that I couldn't get out of. I would imagine that many of your listeners can relate to what I'm talking about. But it was very dark. And so I was there for the 30 days. I did not want to be there at all. But by the end of the first week, I'm like, you know what, I'm here. I may as well put my all into it. And so I did. And by the end of the 30 days, I was armed with these tools, scared out of my mind. Don't get me wrong. I was totally scared to implement these things when I got home. But I did. And I got home. I started a local chronic pain support group, face to face. And then I started my Facebook group, which is called Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. And I started the group because I knew, based on my pain program, that in order for me to kind of recover from the emotional effects of living with chronic pain and illness, that I had to talk to people about it, people that could understand. And so I was looking on Facebook for other chronic pain communities, and there's tons, there's hundreds, probably thousands. And there's some really great ones, that are, condition specific, that I've learned lots and lots of things from. But I wasn't finding a place that was positive and solution based. A lot of them were people kind of doing comparisons of our pain and kind of trying to one-up you as far as how many conditions they have. And while I am a firm believer in absolutely talking about our conditions with people who understand, I think it's not healthy not to. I really was yearning for like a sanctuary, a place that we were working on the solution, working on what doesn't hurt, working on inspiring each other. So that's when I created Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain in 2015. And we now have over 8,600 members, and we're unique in the way that we don't allow complaining. We do offer live chats twice a week, where we call them flush the format, because you can talk about whatever you want. You can vent, you can talk about the specifics of your conditions. But in general, in the group itself, we are non-complaining. And so this helps us to not compare our situations to each other. It helps us to be kind of on an even playing field and say, hey, we've got pain. Let's just say we all live in the same amount of pain. Where do we go from here? And so in the group, we offer various tools, optional tools throughout the day, such as, setting a daily intention in the morning, daily gratitude, of course. And there are so many studies about gratitude pertaining to living with chronic pain, about how it can help, with mental strength. It helps with your sleep, boosts your resilience. Since I've started working with gratitude over the past almost 9 years, there are so many scientific studies that talk about the actual scientific benefits of gratitude on our health. So that is really a passion of mine, is really promoting this through the group. I do a weekly broadcast, which actually you're going to be a guest on in a couple of weeks. It's called Gratefully Living the Chronic Life, and it's on Thursday nights. I offer each week brings on an expert guest that has something to share about, using different strategies to figuring out how to live a joyful life despite our pain. So I'm very proud of the work that I do and the people that join my group. It's not for everybody. I kind of joke that people get diagnosed and they're not saying, hey, let me join a gratitude group. It's usually people that have been sick for a while and are looking for just a way out of their pain. And looking to deal with the emotional aspect, because like I said, no doctor that I've ever heard of ever talks to you about the emotional aspect of pain. Nobody talks about it. They know the physical, and nobody talks about, for me at least, and a lot of people in my group, they said that the emotional pain is far more debilitating than the physical.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point, because I know that, like, now we know that generally there's an emotional, there's usually an emotional connection to getting into pain, but yeah, you're right. Like it's like when you first do go to doctors and stuff, they don't ever mention, hey, like this, you going through this, you being in this pain, you having this illness can be really hard on you emotionally. Cause there's this, that's what happens is we end up with like this building block of conflicts because we experience something, and then maybe it totally transforms our life as we knew it, and we start not being
Yes.
able to do certain things, and then all that creates these emotional conflicts within us. And yeah, it's a whole new ballgame that then we have to know how to deal with that so that we don't end up with like this downward spiral where more things happen and then creates more emotional turmoil on and
Yeah,
on and on.
exactly. I mean, there's so many feelings associated with it. We develop resentments. I had a gratitude and resentment expert on my show just a couple weeks ago. She's a doctor from Australia, Dr. Carrie Howells, and her specialty is on gratitude and its interplay with resentments. And those of us that live with chronic pain and illness, have a very unique set of resentments that I've come to realize. We resent healthy people for having these bodies that they don't appreciate because we would love to have those. Um, we have resentments possibly against friends that maybe we've lost, who don't understand what it is that we deal with, family members, spouses that perhaps we've lost. Resentment, for me at least, resentment against myself, for a variety of reasons. We often do we should on ourselves, which I'm sure you've heard. I should be able to do this. I should be able to. I'm only, 52 years old. I should be able to do this, which is not helpful at all to be thinking like that. But so these resentments can really build up, and that emotional pain really starts to weigh heavily on us. And like you said, life just automatically just changes, and you're not prepared for it. How are we supposed to deal with now what could be the rest of our lives? And so that's heavy stuff to deal with that nobody's helping us deal with.
Mhm. So, in your experience over 9 years, because you've been doing this for like 9 years now,
Yeah.
in what ways have you personally experienced? Because I'm sure you got tons of tools in that program, and yet it was gratitude that really stood out for you and stuck for you, and what you chose to like really focus in and hone in on. So, what um, in what ways has gratitude provided a positive influence for you?
So many ways. It's funny. Well, it's not funny, but there's a great quote by Viktor Frankl. He's a Austrian physicist. I think he was a Holocaust survivor, and he's got some amazing quotes. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning many years ago, and there's a quote which I have right in the intro of my website, Gratitude Addict, and it's everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And so, what I take from that is we can't change our situation. And this can be for people with chronic pain or any struggle, really. I use pain kind of in air quotes. And even in my group, we're not specific to people living with physical pain. We really open it up to people with depression, anxiety, PTSD, because I think pain is pain. And it's really the emotional pain that we deal with, not the physical aspect, although I would argue that gratitude helps with that too. But we don't have control, or we have control over very little. I should say that most of us have control over very little when it comes to our actual condition or situation. What we do have control over is how we respond to it. And that's what gratitude helps me with. And what I'm hearing through my members too is gratitude helps us to focus on what's not in pain, you know, and it's a process. It's not like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Let me whip out my gratitude journal and things are going to be much better. I had a guest on last night who had a great quote. It was, he has a new book coming out. His name's Chris Shembra. The book is called Gratitude Through Hard Times. And said, "Gratitude is not a pill, it's a vitamin," which I thought was a fantastic quote because, I could sit here and tell you all the great things about gratitude all day long, and it makes it seem like this panacea that's going to solve all of our problems. And it's not. Gratitude, we can institute gratitude. And for me, it has made life so much better. But it's not a cure all. We have to practice it and we have to do it on a regular basis. And that can take on many forms. It could be a gratitude journal, it could be joining a gratitude group like mine and, posting the daily gratitude each day. We do a daily question that's always positive based each day, something like, I'm trying to think of an example. What is something you're excited for in the future? We do 3 things you did well today. They're all positive gratitude based tools that we offer in the group. We have a creative writing club. So gratitude helps us to get out of our own way. It helps us to stop stewing in our pain and, just walk through it. It doesn't, it's not looking on the bright side, and it's not toxic positivity, which is this hot new buzz term, which I can't stand because it's not that at all. It's just choosing to love our life more than we hate our pain. That's how I see it. And so it's choosing to walk through our pain, accept our problems. I think acceptance is a really, really vital part of all of this because we don't have to like it at all. In fact, I would say, of course, you're not going to like it. Who would? But you do have to accept it if you want to move forward because otherwise I picture it kind of stewing in this soup of pain without a way to get out. Once we're able to accept our conditions as they are, at least at this very moment, be mindful about it, then we can move forward with joy and living with intention. And that's where we can find gratitude and find, look towards the blessings that are in our life, the pillow that we lay our head on at night, the fact that we have a bed, the fact that we have shelter, the fact that we have clean water to drink and bathe in, um, for the people in our life, our communities, our connections. And as much as I talk about gratitude, I have really come to see that gratitude on its own is great, but when it's paired with connection, it's really what I consider to be the secret sauce towards a life of joy for people living with chronic pain and illness. Because we can focus and work a gratitude practice each day, but when we're sharing it with others, many studies show that when we're sharing our gratitude with others in some capacity, whether it's having a buddy that you text a gratitude to every day, or in a community like mine, when you pair it with connection and sharing it with somebody else, that gratitude magnifies, I forget the percentage, but enormously. So when you're able to take that gratitude practice and pair it with some kind of connection, it really is such an important tool that I am very passionate about spreading to people living with chronic conditions of any kind. Again, like I say, the secret sauce. I just got out, and my group has on Fridays a gratitude circle for 15 minutes. We go on Zoom, we share our gratitudes for 15 minutes, set to the backdrop of some relaxing music, and it's a great way to sort of start our weekend and boost with appreciation. And we can sit there in silence and listen to everybody else's, or we can share our own in a free manner. It's that's just one of the other examples of ways we can practice gratitude and connection with each other. There's so much to it, and I think that a lot of people don't truly understand what gratitude is because it is such a hot buzzword now, and they think it's like this woo-woo thing, but there's so much scientific evidence towards it. And so I've really made it, I call myself the gratitude addict because I really clearly, as this podcast shows, I am passionate about it because I feel and I know that it can help people if they're open to it. You have to be open to the process of it all. And again, be wanting to love your life more than you hate your pain. And I think we deserve that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you, either through your own experience or through witnessing other people's in your group and your connections, have you seen, like, do you have any examples of how you've seen it transform people's lives in a positive way?
I just started about a month or so ago. Somebody suggested that I write down in a journal um, the positive feedback I get, because I get it every day. And so the best compliment I get from people, and I cry just thinking about it, but when somebody tells me, and I hear it all the time, that either they've noticed a difference in their life since joining the group, excuse me, or when somebody would say, my family has noticed a difference in me since I joined your group, that is the best compliment I could ever receive, because I am so, so proud of this group. And it's much bigger than just me. I have wonderful women moderators that help me run the group. But it's really our connection with each other that creates that magic. You know, forgetting the specifics of our conditions and choosing to walk towards gratitude together is just so beautiful. And yeah, I see it. I see it every day. In fact, I just heard at today's gratitude circle, a relatively new member. Um, she was getting choked up and talking about how much the group means to her, and she said it's what she's been looking for her entire adult life, and she didn't know it. And that's a great compliment for me too. And I think, for most people, they don't know something like us exists. I mean, the 8,600 members do, but they don't know. They know there's chronic pain groups out there, but I consider us more gratitude group first and chronic pain group secondary. But when somebody tells me that this is what they've been looking for and they didn't know it, that's a huge compliment for me, because life is freaking hard. It's hard. And so, whatever we can do to help each other, and if I can be a small part of helping somebody to find joy in their life, that's that's a huge win for me. Um, and my moderators, they get that feeling of feeling useful again, because many of us we lose a lot. There's a lot of grief associated with living with a chronic condition. We lose, like I said earlier, we lose often our friends and family. Often we lose abilities, of course. We lose perhaps occupations that we loved, not able to work anymore because of our abilities. So there's so much loss. And so we often feel like we are less of a person because we're not able to do the things that we once did. And so giving people a sense of joy and purpose in their life again, that's a really, really big deal. And it's something that I don't take lightly at all. I take what I do very seriously. And it's volunteer. I don't make money for it, but those compliments are like worth their weight in gold. So it really is a privilege being, with these people who are so open and willing to live a better life. It's really inspiring.
Right. Now, in your experience, because it's a great thing to, I know that in like some of the programs that I've been a part of, it's always in like healing programs, the focus is always on learning how to live our values, create joy, be and find our, find and create our joy, our happiness, and all that good stuff in spite of. But a lot of times, what we find is that the act of not focusing on the pain any longer and to actually start to live our values and create joy in our life and focus on the good, and doing that, we tend to actually start feeling better a lot of
Right.
times.
Right.
Have you witnessed that or personally experienced that yourself?
For sure. Yeah. I actually, my latest book came out actually in March. It's called the 52-Week Intention Journal, Guided Prompts to Build. I'm looking at the book here. I forget what the subline is. Guided Prompts to Build a Practice of Reflection, Focus, and Meaningful Change. And so I was asked to write this book by my publisher because I mentioned one of the posts we do in the group every morning is setting intentions. And I started that many years ago because I think it helps to have a bit of I call it like a guide for the day, but written in pencil, a loose roadmap. Because if we could go into the day and just say, I live with pain. I don't know what I'm going to feel like in an hour, so I'm not going to bother planning anything out, which for me is not helpful. I like to have a little bit of a guide. But I think setting goals, and maybe it's semantics just with the word, but I feel like goals is setting us up for one of those self resentments I was referring to earlier, because our conditions are ever changing. So I could have an intention today to take a shower, return a phone call, and pay a bill, say. But perhaps, in half an hour, my condition is making that not possible. So all of a sudden, I'm not able to do it. If it's an intention, it's okay because it's just something that you intended to do. And I feel like that verbiage, that language is much more helpful. But the act of setting those intentions, and I've heard this from hundreds of my members, that the intention setting is probably their, next to the gratitude, their favorite part of what we do in attitude of gratitude with chronic pain, because it makes them feel they've got a little bit something to look towards to and strive for, um, but while cutting themselves some slack in case they can't. So I bring up my book, the Intention Journal, because of that. But there's also a chapter, one of the weeks, I talk about is something called ikigai. Have you ever heard of ikigai?
I feel like I have, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I hadn't up until I think last summer, but it's a super popular book. Ikigai is a philosophy out of Japan. The book is called Ikigai Secrets to a Long, the Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And so basically they are finding in those blue zones where people live, to be like over 100. In Okinawa, Japan, people talk about the secret is what they call ikigai, and it's finding what gives you joy in life, finding your life's purpose, kind of what puts you in a state of flow. And so I read this book when I heard about it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought I was the only person that hadn't heard of it, because if you go on Amazon, it's got like 20,000 reviews or something crazy like that. But I wrote a chapter on it in the Intention Journal because I think while we can't do what we used to do, and we can spend our time ruminating on that, which I find is not helpful for me, let's find things that we can do. And when I was diagnosed back in 2001, I never knew I would be a writer. I never knew I would be hosting a broadcast. I never knew I would be, running a group. I never thought I'd be an alcoholic, not that I'm proud of that one, but good things have come of it. And I never knew I'd know how to design graphics. Like all of these things have kind of stemmed out of my illness. So I've kind of learned to pivot and find what I can do. And it's all these unexpected things that put me, give me ikigai, or what I feel my life's purpose is. And now I know my life's purpose is helping people, others with living with chronic pain and illness, to find the joys and value in gratitude and connection. But I think there's something like that out there for everyone, more than one thing. So, finding that intention and what gives you purpose, like you just said, Chaz, what you can do and what gives your life meaning, whether it's painting or writing or, something that makes you forget about your pain for a while and that you really get excited about. I think that's so helpful for people, because I think we can just get in our own way a lot. We can spend so much time wasting our precious energy, and it is precious because our energy is very limited. We can spend so much time wasting our precious energy on things that we can no longer do, and we can be sad about that. We can be pissed off about that, as far as I'm concerned, and we should. But I don't allow myself to go to those places for very long. I had a sponsor once in AA say, it's okay to have a pity party for yourself, but don't overstay your welcome. And I just use that in the gratitude circle. I'll allow myself like a day, but if I let it go on longer than a day, I know I need to kind of shift my mindset and work my tools a little bit more, my gratitude and intention and all that stuff. So, Yeah, I totally agree that finding things that you get excited about in life is really a helpful way to find joy and purpose in your life.
Mm-hmm. So,
Ikigai.
Ikigai. Okay. And you said your publisher, like you have this 52-week intention journal. Do you have other published books?
I do.
Oh,
Believe it or not, I was asked to write the 5 Minute Gratitude Journal for Teen Boys last year, which was kind of a surprise. They found me through my website, and I have been writing a book, or no, I should say, I had been writing a book on gratitude and chronic pain for years. And because I've been so busy with the group, I was kind of doing it piecemeal. And then last April, um, I really just felt like I need to get this done for myself. I want to get this out. So I approached my senior moderator in the group and said, I'm going to take a sabbatical for a couple weeks, finish this book, or at least a first draft. And she's like, yeah, go for it. I did that. I finished the first draft. And next thing you know, I'm getting an email from this big publisher said, would you be interested in doing this 5 minute gratitude journal for teen boys, which honestly, I initially laughed at because I didn't think gratitude and teen boys could really go together. And then I was going to turn it down, which I'm so glad now that I didn't, because I know that teens and mental health is a really, really big epidemic right now, especially since COVID. But then I'm like, it would be silly for me to turn down this big publisher and get the experience under my belt and all that. So that one came out in November. 5 Minute Gratitude Journal for Teen Boys, and then got that done out. I was working on my book again, and then they asked me, I know it's not gratitude. They said, do you know anything about intentions? And of course I did. So the 52-week intention journal came out March 30th, 2022. And honestly, that book is really the book I had been writing. While it's not specifically geared towards people with chronic pain and illness, it's everything that I've done, 52 weeks of tools and strategies to living a joyful life. And, it's everything I've done living with chronic pain. So members of my group love this book. I love this book. And then my next book I just finished a couple weeks ago through the same publisher. It's a 365 question a day self-reflection journal, which will be coming out in September.
cool.
Yeah, so I've been a little busy.
Yeah. So you are really it's kind of like there's a theme there. You have it's like more journal focused books.
Yes.
Interactive, not just read this to learn about it and then be done.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
52-week intention journal has, each week has a topic, like I mentioned, Ikigai. And so I'll write about that topic on the first page. And then there are, after the writing, my writing part, then it will be 2 pages of reflective prompts for the reader to take that reading, what I taught in that topic, and apply it to their own life. So it's part journal, part reading in that one. And
Nice.
the question a day journal that's coming in September is very cut and dry. It's really a short question a day for people to reflect on every day for a year. So that one's pretty cut and dry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are some of the sample questions?
Oh, let's see. I just wrote 365 of them. They should be coming easier to me. Let me think. They were broken up into 4 categories. There was your personal values was one, gratitude was another, looking to the future was another, and talents and skills. I think there's one more in there I'm forgetting. But it was what was your favorite subject in school and why? Who, if you could sit down to lunch with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be? What would you talk about? Trying to think of some of the funnier ones I came up with. I've been doing, for the past 8 years of running the group, we've been posting a daily positive based question in the group every day, and I've been saving them all to a Dropbox account. So I've got, 1,000 at least questions that I had to pull from, which made writing this journal not as difficult as the other 2 books, or not as challenging, I should say. But yeah, they're positive based questions, and what are your talents? What are you good at? What do people come to you for advice on? things like that. Things like that. I really was intentional in trying to make it a quick thing for them. It's really a journal for people that don't have a lot of time to devote towards a longer journal, but can devote a question a day and do something relatively quickly, to find out what makes you tick, what makes you unique, what you're good at, learning how you can grow, and really kind of reflecting on what makes you great.
Right. So that over the course of the year, you just come to know yourself better.
Yes, exactly.
Very cool. What are some of the other things? Because you've talked about how you have like daily intentions for your group and you
Yeah.
got have gratitude circles on Fridays and
Hmm.
different questions you ask people for self-reflection. What are some of the other
Yes.
things you guys include?
We do. Let's see. So we start with daily intentions in the morning, and then the daily question first thing in the afternoon. Then I do something, I call it breath breaks. They're really meditations, but I call them breath breaks because um, I think people get turned off by the word meditation. They think everybody's at a different level with it, and they think it's difficult because our minds wander. But our minds are supposed to wander. We're human. That's what happens. So I post a daily, very short, usually 5 minutes and under, um, meditation from YouTube. I call them breath breaks, and so I'm trying to make people more accessible to meditation and just show them the benefits of just coming into the present and slowing our breath down, because often we don't realize how shallow our breaths are, and that can really hinder our pain. I know you know this, Chaz. So, we can just do intentional breathing, even if it's just a minute of deep inhalations and exhalations, and it brings us into the present, and we stop hunching our shoulders and clenching our jaw. So just for the purpose of doing a word play, I call them breath breaks. So that's in the afternoon. Then we do our daily gratitude post. um, Later in the afternoon, we do our what three things have you done well today, and then I post a good night post every single night and kind of do a kind of a positive based inspirational, something to leave the members with, to wind down their day depending on where they are in the world. We've got members from 82 countries at last check. I saw, which was pretty cool. Most from the United States, Canada, South Africa, and what did I say? Canada, the UK, South Africa, and America. But yeah, definitely all over the world. Um, and then we have sister groups too. We have about 5 or 6 sister groups that offer various tools as well. We have the AOG Journaling Club, which helps people to, you know, we give them prompts. One of my moderators runs that one, gives you prompts to write either in your journal or just contribute as a comment in the group itself. We have a book club that focuses on various personal growth books. Right now, they're focusing on 2 over the next 6 months. And all of these things are optional, by the way, for anybody wanting to join the community. Everything is optional. So I like to say, take what you want and leave the rest. Some people just read and don't contribute, and that is absolutely okay. In fact, encouraged. I just want people to know that there's tools out there. They do not have to participate. So what else? The journaling club, the book club. We have a creative writing club that was just started in November. Cooking, crafting, gardening club, where people, talking about what puts you in a state of flow. That's where people can post recipes and artwork that they do. Diamond painting is a big one, gardening, things like that. Way to show what interests you and to get ideas from people. We have an affirmations club where one of our moderators posts a daily positive affirmation each day. And so you can either write that in your journal or repeat it in the comments. And affirmations are, again, scientifically shown to help shift your mindset for the day by repeating a positive affirmation. Believe it or not, just repeating something like that has been shown to kind of shift our mood and our day. And, I really think that any little thing we can use to help offset the negativity from our pain is helpful. Let's see, I call it the chatting place, which I post a daily reading from a book of daily inspiration specifically for people with chronic pain. So that is a place to post those readings and for people to comment if they'd like. What else is there? I might be forgetting one or two. No, that might be it. That might be it. And then we do what I referenced our Flush the Format live chats on Zoom every Tuesday and Wednesday for an hour. And that's a place for people to kind of connect and meet together. And that is where all of our group rules are flushed. That's why we call it Flush the Format. And people can share about whatever they want. They can share about fears, about an upcoming doctor's appointment that they're nervous about. They can share about specifics of their conditions. Anything that they need to share that don't that aren't in the confines of our regular group rules. And honestly, a lot of times people, while they're open to do that stuff, a lot of times there's a lot of laughter and joy, but that is a place that's important to me to offer that. If people don't have a place where they can share very openly and honestly about their conditions, because I do feel strongly that you need to do that in order to fully heal from the emotional effects of chronic pain and illness. And then we do various things throughout the year, offer special events. We do what we call Happy Mail, where people can sign up to send letters back and forth to each other, the old snail mail way. So we're always looking for ways to engage people and make them feel a part of something that is bigger than ourselves. Because I think that isolation for me was a lot of the cause of my emotional pain, feeling that I was alone in my thoughts, alone in my feelings, that nobody understands. Being able to connect with people who do understand helps get us outside of ourselves and, again, helps us to heal. That gratitude and connection thing, I think, again, is just the secret sauce to a life of joy and meaning in our lives. And we can find that, and we are worth that. We are worth a joyful life. We may not like what happened to us or our diagnosis, but we can shift things if we want to. We just have to put in some effort, if that's what you want. But everybody's at a different place on their journey. So we may not be for everybody, but for some, we are everything. And I'm really proud of that.
That's awesome.
You
have these broadcasts every Thursday and you have
Right.
different guests all the time. Do you guys ever focus on tools and modalities for healing, or do you really try to just focus on gratitude and joy and acceptance in spite of wherever you're at?
That's a great question. Definitely more gratitude, but I had an EFT practitioner came on a couple months ago, actually, tapping. She came on, but she kind of focuses on tapping with gratitude, so it kind of tied in. We've definitely had some really important guests on that talk about the mind-body connection. We had last year we had Dr. Howard Schubiner on, who's a very famous doctor who has a program kind of based on Dr. John Sarno's, oh gosh, I forget the name of his book, but Dr. Howard Schubiner was featured in this film that we were gifted to have a screening of called This Might Hurt. And so he talked at length about the mind-body connection and, reducing stress, dealing with past trauma and things like that. So we do offer that on occasion. But because so many other people and so many other groups talk about, the therapies that are out there for living with chronic pain, I tend to stay away from that because I'm trying to help people to get out of that vicious cycle of because a lot of us have tried everything, and I know I sure did. And I spent a whole lot of time trying to cure myself and not living my life. And while I would never give up hope and I will never stop trying various things, that's kind of not what I'm about. So while I will offer those things on occasion, I'm more about how to get past the emotional debilitation and try to stop trying to cure our pain and start living our life.
And you said it's not only when you refer to chronic pain, you're not only referring to physical pain, you're also
Right.
referring to people who might have like addiction problems or issues, or
Yes.
like mental stuff, like maybe depression or anxieties or things like that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said earlier, chronic pain and depression most often go hand in hand. I forget the specifics, but it's over 90%, I want to say, have actual clinical depression with it, which is understandable. But also, a lot of people living with chronic pain, a lot of studies show that they're the results of a past childhood trauma, PTSD. They're showing that an enormous percentage of people living with chronic pain have experienced past traumas. And there's been some really famous books written about that. My Body, The Body Keeps the Score is a famous one. Um, a lot about the stress, mind body connection, things like that. So, yes, to answer your question, yes, any kind of anxiety, trauma, pain. I believe that pain is pain, whether it's emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. It's what we help with is helping people to learn how to handle it. And we don't substitute for, true psychological, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I am just a person who knows my story and I know the research that I've done personally and through my group. And I share my story openly and willingly to help people. But I am not a doctor, so I would never claim to substitute for true physical, psychological, um, you know, therapists and doctors. But, just try to help a little bit with the tools that I offer and kind of what I've uncovered about gratitude and connection with chronic pain. I haven't seen anybody else talking about it, so that's kind of my life's purpose. My ikigai is helping to get that out there.
Hmm. How has gratitude played the biggest role in your life? Like, what's been the most positive impact it's had in your life?
Oh gosh, that's like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Well, you could share a bunch of things if you want. You could share several examples of ways that it's really supported you.
I'll tell you something that really gave it a boost. In 2016, I decided that I was going to undertake this gratitude project, which I was putting on my personal Facebook page, and it was incredibly ambitious, and I had no idea how much so at the time. But I had set out January 1st. I said, I'm going to put one thing I am grateful for each day on my personal page, not in the group. The group was existing at that time, but I wanted to do it on my personal page, as a way to help myself to, instate a gratitude, a different kind of gratitude practice. Because I find that often our gratitude practices can get stale over time. And so I encourage people to sort of mix it up. Perhaps you've been doing a gratitude journal for a couple years and it's losing its effect. Maybe it's time to switch things up. So I set out on this project, and initially I was, doing very short posts because I thought, oh, people are going to really get annoyed, and maybe unfriend me even because they're just sick of seeing my posts. But it really turned into quite the opposite. And I wrote an article for a site called The Mighty, which is for people with chronic pain and illness, about my gratitude project. So I had started out with small posts, and I should say my rules were um, my rules for myself were I couldn't repeat if I remembered. I couldn't repeat entries, and I didn't want to make them things of material value because I wanted them to be things that anybody could relate to, regardless of their financial situation or things that they have. So it was so ambitious, Chaz. And by April, I was like, oh my God, what did I get into? Because I was running out of things to talk about. Um, but that is when really things kind of kick-started for me, and I really had to dig deep, really deep, and find things like, I am grateful today for inside jokes with my husband. I am grateful for I'm trying to think of some other examples. Sriracha hot sauce, like the silly things, but 366 days there were in that year. And so you really, when you are forced to dig deep, it is amazing what you could come up with. And while I started out the year with these short posts, people were really loving it. And people I didn't know were signing on to look at my page. I started making the post public. And by the end of the year, I was writing like daily manifestos about each thing. And so, it really, that project, my gratitude project of 2016, was really a game changer for me as far as my level of gratitude and really recognizing how much beauty there is in my life and how much I have to be grateful for. And I can still be, I can still be going through all the pain that's associated with my condition. But the more studies show that the more we practice gratitude, it's like a muscle. The more we exercise it, the easier it gets. So, often people will be like, I wrote in my gratitude journal today. It didn't really help me. That doesn't work. But it really requires upkeep. And it's on the days where we're just not feeling grateful that is the most important to practice it. And you may have to dig super, super deep to find something, but you'll be able to find something, even if it's, I'm grateful for the bread I have in my pantry, something like that. You'll find something, and eventually it does get easier. You can rewire your brain because we are wired towards the negative. It's called negativity bias. It's just, humans are wired for the negative. It's part of the fight and flight response that we were born with. So we have to be proactive in offsetting that. And that's where gratitude can really step in to do that. And so, we can be a negative person by nature, but you can absolutely help to shift that by instituting a gratitude practice into your day. So that gratitude practice of 2016 was really a a plot twister for me for sure. And I hope I saved all the entries. I'm hoping to get that into a book someday. We shall see, because I would love to put those entries into a book. But that was a big game changer for me.
That's awesome. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of the book 1000 Gifts?
I have heard of that, actually. I think I downloaded it on Audible, but I have not listened to it yet.
Oh, I love it. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorites. I
I
mean,
will
it's a
listen.
thousand things that she's grateful for. And it's really beautiful because for me, it really opened my mind to like infinite possibilities, like
Yeah,
as she would like write things, I would be like, oh my God, I never even really thought about that. But that is something that brings, it's like all these little things where there's this undertone of joy, but you don't even realize or think to be grateful for it. It's a really fantastic
now what's the
book.
author's name? Is it like Cam something? Am I getting that right?
Um,
That doesn't matter. I'll look it up.
Anne Voskamp.
Oh,
Voskamp?
yeah. I think she writes several gratitude books, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a dare to live fully right where you are.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's fantastic. I really love it. And it would be a book that I would reference and read again, except for I passed it forward to somebody.
That's the grateful way.
Yeah, and I know for me personally, like something that really, really, really helped me to expand my gratitude was traveling abroad. I
I
think that
bet.
we are so spoiled
Yes.
sometimes and we just don't realize the things that we have. We take so many luxuries for granted. We think that we don't realize they're luxuries until you go somewhere that you realize very quickly that, oh my God, there's so many people in this world that do not have these things that we just have
Yeah,
access to, that we've always had and we've never known any different, even
for
when
sure.
even if we struggle sometimes with finances and um, I mean, we're still so rich in so many ways that we're so unaware of until we go other places where we see true poverty. And yeah, so I know that just really helps me. It's like there's just all these little things, like how you said early on, like, oh, it's okay to sometimes just be grateful for the fact that you have a pillow,
Yes.
or a roof over your head, no
Yep.
matter what the capacity, like no matter how small it is or how, maybe it needs like rehabbed or needs worked, or maybe it's not fancy and all pretty and all the top of the line new things, but like you have shelter, you know?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. You're right. That's a good point. It's not pretty. Life's not pretty. And, we shouldn't pretend that it is. We can get caught up in social media and looking at everybody's highlight reels and stuff and think, how much we lack and how imperfect we are. But that we are imperfect. We're beautifully, perfectly imperfect people, and should embrace that in ourselves and not fight against it, but embrace it. And gratitude can help with that also, for sure. We, like you said, we are spoiled, and maybe we had an awful night's sleep, but we did have that pillow. Hopefully people had the pillow. But yeah, I bet traveling abroad was a really big way to look at things like that, for sure.
huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was life changing. Okay. I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody, which is,
Okay.
if you were told that you could only share one message for the rest of your life, what would you want to share?
I'll first reference a quote by the Buddha, which is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And that is not to diminish anybody's pain. Suffering is very real. But like I said earlier in the broadcast, that our suffering can be shifted. So I don't even use the term suffering for myself anymore. I say struggle, because I think we can get out of our suffering if we want to, by how we respond to our situation. So I would really like to share that if you want a life of joy and purpose, there are things you can do, such as gratitude and connection and joining a community, and not looking at the bright side but choosing, choosing to love your life more than you hate your pain, by using tools such as gratitude and chronic pain, because you are worth it. We all are worth it. And you deserve to live. Maybe it's not the life that you intended, but you can still have a good life. And that is what I
Absolutely.
wish for all of your listeners.
Thank you. And how can people connect with you?
They can find me if you go on gratitudeaddict.com. There is stuff about my group and the broadcast on there, and my books. I encourage anybody to, whether you live with physical pain or any other kind of pain, Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain on Facebook is the community. We're waiting for you. We would love, love, love to have you. It's a really special place.
Awesome. And are you on any other social media, or do you pretty much focus on the Facebook group right now?
Yeah, I'm on all of them. I have an Instagram page, Gratitude Addict, and LinkedIn and Twitter. I don't use much. I have a Facebook page as well. But if you go on gratitudeaddict.com, you'll see all that stuff on there.
Awesome. Do you have any final messages that you wanted to share?
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun. You're a great interviewer, Chaz. And I can't wait to have
Oh,
you on my show.
yay! Well,
Yay!
thanks for being here.
Well, that does it for today, and as always, I hope you were able to take away something inspiring or empowering or helpful from today's episode. If you feel inclined, check out Lauren's Facebook group, find her on social media, grab one of her books, and most important, choose to be grateful today. I love you all and I appreciate you. Please remember that if you have found value in the content shared throughout this podcast the past 2 years, please know that your support is forever appreciated. Ways that you can help support this podcast are by clicking the subscribe button, sharing an episode with a friend on your social media, and of course, leaving a 5-star rating if I earned it, and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, make this week great.